Welcome to Surviving the Startup. I am Jay, your host, a first time startup founder straight out of university. Follow along as I explore the stories of entrepreneurs, founders, and VCs who are shaping the future of businesses. I'll be speaking with recent graduates who are breaking the mold and making their mark in the world of startups. From the ups and downs of the entrepreneurial journey to the lessons learned along the way, we'll be diving deep into the most forward thinking individuals in the game. So, whether you're a recent graduate, an aspiring founder, or VC, or simply someone who loves learning about the inner workings of startups, join me as I embark on a journey to survive the startup. Hey Jacob, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you, Jay?
I'm good. I'm sitting in a friend's flat in London, on the move constantly. But we've got some time today to talk about you and your journey through ARM to being a TEDx speaker to Thiel's finalists, Z Fellows. The list goes on, and now starting and now in your own startup, Econ Pilot. So we'll get through all of that. So before we get started and get into the meat of it, can you tell me a little bit about you and what you've been up to?
So my name's Jakub Lenski. I'm a full-time founder currently working on Econ Pilot, which is a product research tool for online sellers, focusing on dropshippers and Amazon sellers currently. Originally came from Poland, moved to the UK around 2010. I knew absolutely no English, eventually learned English. I kind of talk about this story most places I go. And I feel like it was that kind of perspective of the mindset shift of, oh wow, I've been able to learn a whole language and go from not knowing anything to now being one of the best, whether it was in school or something. And that kind of broke down the walls in terms of being like, maybe I can do other things I enjoy or other things I wish to do. So I went from there. I went to college. I did the arm degree apprenticeship, went to uni simultaneously, started a startup, did various bits and bobs, whether it was the TEDx talk, whether it was the Germany Frankfurt exhibition, and things in between. And yeah, currently just focusing full time on Econ Pilot. That's kind of the main introduction about me.
Awesome. It sounds like you've been busy. It sounds like you don't stop. So tell me what. How did you go from learning English to becoming full-time software engineer at ARM?
Yeah, so that road took around 8 years. It went from I always tell a funny story where the first time I actually came to England, and my friends bully me for this, by the way. When I first came to England, I was a week into being in England. I only knew Polish, made the basic rudimentary English of just hello and how are you. And my mum told me that if I don't understand something, I remember going down the elevator, getting ready for my first class a week into, my coming into England. And she said, if you don't understand something, feel free to say, please repeat. She said this in Polish. She said, jeśli czegoś nie rozumiesz, to powiedz, please repeat. So I was like, okay, cool. I've got my thing down. I'm going to say, please repeat if I don't understand something. The problem is, if no matter how many times they'd repeat it, I would not understand it. So, I'd get to primary school, the teacher would be like, do you want to go toilet? And I'd be like, please repeat. Because I'd had a really strong Polish accent at the time. So I'd be rolling my R's. I'd go, please repeat. Um, and I always looked back at that time and I was like, why would she give me that advice? Later on, I thought maybe it was a useful bit of advice because the more they repeated it, the more it stuck in my mind. And eventually they would actually, literally walk me to the toilet and point at the sign. I'm like, okay, so that's what you meant. So maybe it was really just an exercise of repetition. But it was that kind of thing where, yeah, throughout, I think year 5, year 6, when I came to England, I learned English, then got on to, high school, Albion Academy within Salford. And there I kind of picked up, extra subjects. At the end, when, everything finished, I ended up doing things like being the head boy, the leader of the debate team, which of course helped my English and all of that. And I ended up finishing with, I think, around 14 to 16 GCSEs, all combined. And then from there, I went on to A level, which was Loreto, also based in Manchester. And in Loreto, I studied 4 subjects, one of them being Polish. Well, I didn't really study it. I sat the exam because it was just an extra A level. Why not? But it was mathematics, business studies, and computer science. And I believe that's actually the first interaction I had with computer science. I did not do computer science in high school, even though I did so many GCSEs. That was the one thing I didn't do on my list. I think I just didn't like the teacher that much. So the first kind of hello world program I wrote was when I was 16 years old in college. But similar to the whole, learning English experience, I jump in a deep end. What that meant is college started late August, early September, and they had a hackathon in Manchester in October. I joined the hackathon not knowing what I was doing. And no one in my class went because we were first years, and no one had an idea. It was all second years, other people. But I ended up sitting with these other kids from Berry College I ended up joining their team, and they knew how to code. And I was just kind of even helping them with just the concept of designing, decomposing it, computational thinking, going like, how do we break down this challenge into code? And I feel like that jumping in the deep end really made me figure out that I really do enjoy it and made me pursue it as later on as a career. When I was coming up to the finish of college, it ended up being the case of I knew I wanted to go to university, get a formal
Mm.
education, simply not necessarily by the fact that I would learn much in university, but by the fact that a certificate is respected so much these days. Even in the days of Silicon Valley, where certain people can get a job without any degree, we're still in the world, especially within the European, UK. You still very much need a degree.
You need that entry ticket, right? You need that ticket in that piece of paper to say, hey, yeah, I've done this, and now I'm in. And it's what I
Yeah,
found when I went to university as well. Like I did aerospace at university. Did I enjoy it as much as I thought? Probably not. But I finished it, and it's my ticket in now. Say if Fabio doesn't end up in the way Fabio goes, or how I'm planning it, then I've still got that ticket and that entry ticket into a job.
exactly. I remember there's actually a film called Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal, and he always has this saying. He's a bit of a psychopath in the film, but he always says, his theory is you need a lottery, you need a ticket to play the lottery, right? You need to buy the ticket to be able to win a lottery, and that's the whole idea of like the degree, right? For Arm, well, the perfect thing is with all the luck, the fact that we've existed in this world at this right time and this right place. Another thing that was right in place was the fact that degree apprenticeships were happening at the time I was around, which meant that not only could I end up going to university, I could also get paid for going to university and work full time as a software engineer. So there wasn't many choices in terms of very large companies doing it. I believe Amazon does it now. At the beginning, it was just mainly things like ARM, PwC, so like the big four. Um, and it was I either go into tech consultancy or I go into software engineering. And knowing ARM and learning about them in computer science, I was straight away drawn to ARM. I applied to them originally thinking I'd have to move to Cambridge office, but luck struck me, and there was actually an open spot in the Manchester office, which I ended up joining, and I was kind of the only degree apprentice there, or at least in that team, for the next 4 years, which kind of got me from the point of cool, I just left college, started university, to now I have 4 years work experience, almost equivalent to like a senior engineer by the time I was 21.
100%. I think that's a really cool point. What I'm interested in is how did you know about this? Like, how did you find out about ARM? How did you find out about this opportunity? Did you do your own research? Was it YouTube? Was it mentors that you potentially had? How did you know that? Right, this is what I'm gonna get, and I'm gonna get the experience as well.
Yeah, so degree apprenticeships, and this is the nice thing about Loreto College in Manchester, they show you all the opportunities.
I was gonna say just a note on Loreto College. I'm actually going there at the end of this month for a workshop with
Perfect.
Fabio. So as soon as you said it, I was like, I've
It's
heard
a
that
full
name from
circle,
somewhere.
yeah. It's a full
Yeah.
circle, and well, yes. So the nice thing about Loreto College is they showing you kind of all the opportunities, right? They, of course, they get you to set up your UCAS profile and go down the traditional route. They also offer you
Mm,
Oxbridge if you get the grades, and then they also say there's also degree apprenticeships and all that kind of thing. So they open all these different avenues, and I mainly learned through college. With stuff, for startups, of course, there wasn't really a college, so most of that just came from the internet and Google and YouTube and things like that. But yeah, with a degree apprenticeship, I discovered that through college. Whether it was our form tutor or someone like that, I forget who exactly mentioned it, but there was a mention of it. I ended up googling it. It kind of fell into my ethos of I want to accelerate and go as fast as possible
hmm
in terms of learning and in terms of getting to the point I want to be. So this would kill two birds with one stone: get the experience and the university degree.
Yeah, for sure. So you're at ARM now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're coding away. You're getting taught. You're getting all your experience. When do you realize? When did you know you wanted to start something? When did you start something?
So I've been doing things for a very long time. When I started high school, in around year eight, I had a YouTube channel. Whether it was gaming, whether it was things like that, I grew that to around 3,000 subscribers, and it was the whole idea of just messing around with my friends,
hmm
playing games, always doing something extracurricular, not just in terms like debate mate, all this other stuff, but something entrepreneurial out of my own accord. Whether it was editing, a GTA montage to the music, final countdown, all that, it was just really fun to me, and I like the idea of exploring these different opportunities. Whether it was becoming a YouTuber, doing some sort of business or something like that. With Econ Pilot specifically, that came later, and that came mainly during my arm time. When I was in college, I remember from high school transitioning to college saying, I'm going to start doing something serious, something on the side. At that point, I just started trading, where it was just mainly Forex trading. Forex trading went about as well as most Forex tradings go. I didn't really make much. I ended up just spending a lot of time looking at ticks and being emotionally driven to make decisions. But at least that did teach me a little bit more about trading. And now doing long term trading is really help with my mindset and how you approach it and how you really look at things. And in college, actually, and not many people know this, but I ended up starting a little graphic design agency called Lenny Online. Made a Wix website because I didn't know how to code at the time. Everything like that. It was kind of experimenting with what I can do. I knew Photoshop pretty well. There's been plenty of times I Photoshopped my friends' faces onto things. So I thought, why can't I make people's logos and websites and graphic design stuff? And it was, I believe I discovered e-commerce around the late, um, yeah, like last year, so 2018, when I was just leaving college and starting on. I discovered e-commerce. I learned more about Amazon FBA. I ended up testing a few products, whether it was dog water bottles that didn't really sell well, and then I ended up implementing my own research methods. And that's when I knew. I said, when I join ARM, I'm going to have extra disposable income. I'm still going to be living at home. I need to kind of use that time and prioritize it wisely to be able to really get my product out there, and be able to reinvest that money to be able to create this passive income. And that's how I went onto the entrepreneurial journey of e-commerce. Whether it was starting Amazon and then later on moving on to lanyards on Amazon and then later on drop shipping them, growing that to around 40,000 annual revenue, to later on COVID happening. So as I was selling lanyards and business to business products, a lot of sales flopped because businesses were closing down, events were no longer happening, to later on pivoting to what is now Ecompilot, which started off as an Excel sheet on my computer, mainly as a way for me to quickly calculate, estimate profits, what products might do well, posting, my frustration on all these pay to win tools that really are just curated blogs of like, here's five products that will win this week, but really it's 400,000 visitors monthly, looking at these products. They get saturated immediately. So I decided to apply my software engineering skills and my e-commerce knowledge to build something automated, something that tracks 1.2 million products online, so you can find a niche no one else is looking at. That's how we got onto Ecompilot. Yeah.
So we'll go. I think I want to touch on Ecompilot in a little bit. I want to go into more depth because I want to find out why you're excited about e-commerce. But we'll go into that before. What I've learned so far is you went into ARM knowing you wanted to start something. You go right. I'm going to ARM. I'm going to get my skills. I'm going to get my experience. I'm going to get that ticket. But you knew straight away you've already got this problem that you're trying to solve, and I think that's one of the biggest things that founders miss. They try and start a startup because they want to be a founder. They want to start a company, but often they end up building a product which nobody wants. So then, using that experience, you're incredibly successful in the US, but you've never been to the States. So tell me about Thiel's fellowship and tell me about Z Fellows. What happened there? Why did you apply, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, so similar to how I kind of go into the deep end with a hackathon, I thought, right, well, I'm starting Ecompilot. I got into the whole world of indie hackers, which is a really cool forum with just people looking to create, SaaS businesses, side incomes. I ended up doing a lot more research. I ended up discovering, the Y Combinator YouTube channel, Paul Graham, everything like that, the holy grail of startups. And that kind of opened my eyes to the whole thing, and everything started clicking together. That's the funny thing. Like now it's 2023, right? In a way, I've been doing businessy stuff since 2018. Most people go into software engineering or into computer science knowing they want to be a startup founder. That was never the case for me. That never crossed my mind. I thought I was going to be selling products for the rest of my life, like physical products, like in e-commerce. So 2021 really clicked for me. I was like, so Airbnb, Stripe, all these different companies, this is how the world works. Riverside, the software we're recording this on. And it was around January, February time where I decided to apply to both Y Combinator. So I signed up for Y Combinator Startup School. They said they had got an open cohort. I thought I'd apply to that. And at the same time, I discovered things like the Teal Fellowship, which was Basically, Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal and Palantir, saying, "Drop out of uni for 100K and just do your startup." At the time, I wasn't sure if I was gonna drop out. At the same time, there's a blocker of the fact that I'm in a contract that pays for my university. So it was the kind of thing where I was like, I just wish to see where it goes. Not really much thinking of it because everything I'm doing right now is completely outside of work hours. It's in my own time. I want to focus on ARM and finishing that and putting my full energy into that. But I thought I'd apply either way. Maybe I'll get some expertise. And as time went on, I went through the application process. There was quite a few interviews you do with them, around 3 or 4. By the time it was October,
What was the application process like? What was it like, the whole application process?
so you go on their website, you apply through their application form. Later on, you end up getting a screening call from one of the team members at the Teal Fellowship. You end up going through a few more calls like that, and then later on, you get onto kind of the interview stage where you have 4 Teal Fellow alumni, that have gone through the program. Jump in a Zoom call. It lasts an hour for you. It lasts 15 minutes for them. But imagine it's 4 interviews in a row. And they join the call. They're all from different countries, and they'll be like, "Hey, my name's Thingy. Tell me about your startup. Tell me about your goals." And they kind of, the way the process works is the alumni look at you, whether at your traction, whether it's at your business, or if there's none of that, they look at your vision. They look at who you are. What makes you this weird? What makes you, be this young person, this driven, and in a way almost psychotic about this business. They look at those specific traits and they try and figure you out. So and it was kind of through those alumni interviews that 3 out of the 4 alumni I spoke to were like, "Holy shit, I really like the idea, and not only that, I like your energy. Let's add each other on LinkedIn, speak outside of this." And one of them ended up referring me to another Teal fellow who later on suggested, offered me 100,000 if I would drop out right now in October time, but I said no because at this time now I was paying not only rent, I was covering the rent for me and my mum because I was the main household earner at the same time, and I had to look at the fact that I am so close to finishing university that I want to stay and see it through. And then
Did your mom know you were applying to this? Did your mom know what stage it was
Yeah,
at?
yeah. My mom, like, the thing is one thing that I'd like to clarify also, whether it was the stuff in high school, whether it was A levels, whether it was, degree apprenticeship, it's all been off my own accord. It's been the kind of fact that there's a level of freedom and that like good parenting gives where she never said, I'll be disappointed if you get a D or a C or if you don't get here. It was always kind of like, do something that'll make you happy. Of course, we did, as people that came to England, we did have money problems at the beginning, so that kind of ingrained in me the whole idea of wanting to start a business, wanting to kind of break out into that world, as many people experience, which is kind of why I have that drive. But she didn't necessarily always say things to me, do this, do that. So she was always open to the fact that I was applying, and she was saying, whatever you feel like is the best choice. She believed that I would make the right decision, and saying no to that 100,000. That same team fellow ended up referring me to Corey Levy, which is our current investor. And he said, "Well, Corey Levy does this program called Z Fellows, where you don't have to drop out, you don't have to do anything. Perhaps speak to him, and maybe once you finish ARM, you could fully go on your company and you could get investment and all that." So we looked at that as like, okay, once I finish ARM, once I finish university, maybe I'll be able to transition straight to doing this kind of work. And it ended up being that around that same time when I was at ARM, I had to move back to Poland for a bit, towards the end of 2022, and sort a few things with family issues. So I ended up, telling Arm how actually I probably won't be able to continue once I finish my university, simply by the fact that I have to work completely remote from Poland. I don't know how long it's going to take. And it was during that time where I kind of realized, okay, well, now is the time to get funding. Now with university finished and me working remotely from Poland, perhaps I put my full energy into this. And that's how it transitioned onto.
So now you've successfully got funding for Econ Pilot. Looking back at it, do you regret not taking that 100K?
Yes and no. It's the kind of, you can always look at it as a butterfly effect. Um, on one side, so the butterfly effect is the whole idea that you make one small change and it changes your life completely, right? If you like look at a pathway, you make the yes or no decision, you put butter on your sandwich one day, and boom, your life changes. You were like 2 minutes later for your bus, and you don't get ran over or something like that. That's the whole idea of the butterfly effect. But what ends up happening is I think like I don't regret it simply by the fact that now being full time on a startup, perseverance, grit, hard work, determination, talent, intelligence, those are all part of it. But you don't realize like the type of perseverance. It's not just perseverance; it's perseverance at 100% output. You know, you have to be outputting 100% all the time and persevere and stay mentally strong. And I wonder if I did take that 100K and dropped out and had problems, whether it was with with university and all of that, whether I would have been in where I am today. I don't think so. So I feel like it was the right decision to make. At the same time, you could just say, oh, maybe um, that teal fellow would have helped me more or something like that. But then again, I very much doubt it. It's the kind of fact that as investors, they will help you as much as they can, but it is up to you and your mental strength and your process for a startup that will determine whether you succeed. So I'm happy I decided to wait out and take the 200K instead later on. That I didn't know was going to come.
Yeah,
Right when I
yeah.
said no to the 100K, there was no idea of another investment later on.
So you're technical, and
Hmm.
I think the majority of people who want to start a startup or a company are actually non-technical.
Yeah.
Before I started Fabrio, I was non-technical, but I had to pick up the skills and learn how to code to help build out the platform. Uh, they don't like my code. Now we've got a proper CTO in, and we've got a tech team. They take the piss out of my code all of the time, and it's slowly getting replaced on the platform. But hey ho, it's what we need to get to MVP. Um, so you're a technical founder, and you just said that you lack some of the skills, right? And I think it's really important as a CEO and as an early stage founders, like we both are, straight out of educational arm or whatever it is we don't have all the skills, we don't have a lot of experience. But as a co-founder, I know that my skills lack here, but I know my other co-founder's skills. He's got the skills to do the business side and the projections, etc., etc. Whereas I don't have that kind of same like strict thinking. More mine's like strategy and thinking about like our customers and speaking to our customers, building that persona and the selling side. So how do you fill those gaps with the skills at the very start? Because obviously you built out a team now, and we can go and talk about that. But how did you start to brand, or how did you start to think, I don't know how to do this? What? How would you advise someone else who wants to start a company and they don't know what they're doing if they don't think they've got the skills?
Yeah. Prior to funding, you are on your own. Um, sure, you could perhaps get sweat for equity, but then again, I'd still class that as monetary value. Um, so in the beginning, you have to have the mindset of I will become jack of all trades and maybe a master of some. Um,
Hmm.
the nice thing about and there's a nice thing about knowing how to code and starting as a technical founder is it gives you the ability to create without having to pay someone for engineering, which lets you prototype ideas much faster, etc., etc. There's an investor and almost philosopher like person within the VC sphere and startup sphere called Naval Ravikant. I recommend reading some of his Twitter posts and in general how he perceives the world in terms of not necessarily getting rich, but how to start a startup and everything. And he talks about this one thing called um, leverage, right? When it comes to creating things, and you want to have leverage when you're creating something, or you want to have leverage in order to be able to create a business and in order to be able to create an income, in order to be able to create anything at scale. And you want permissionless leverage. What that means is, if you start an agency or if you work, for a salary, you will have something called leverage with permission. Simply by the fact that in order to gain a leverage and create a business as an agency, you need a certain amount of UX. Let's say I'm creating a UX agency or a marketing agency. I need a certain amount of marketers to be able to handle an X amount of clients. And that's
Yep.
permission, like permission leverage, which means that if I have 10 clients, I need 10 marketers. If I want, 10 extra clients, I need 10 extra marketers. So my costs are constantly rising and I need to hire people and I need their permission to be able to, for them to work with me and to pay a salary in order to be able to, fulfill these orders. Same thing with a normal job, right? You need permission from your boss or someone to be able to output, or not output, but to be able to gain a larger amount of responsibility within a company, a different salary, a different position. Permissionless leverage is what you want to aim for in today's digital world. Permissionless leverage is which doesn't need permission from any other human or any other entity. And a perfect example of that is two things: media and code. If you're technical like me, you might find permissionless leverage in the ability to create software. With eCompilot, we track 1.2 million products, and those are the same systems and those same servers we pay for, regardless if we have one user, 100 users, 1,000 users, right? And yet our kind of overhead stays the same unless we want to track more
Mm-hmm.
products, etc., etc. In media, the permissionless leverage is that once you create a YouTube clip, once you create a book, once you create a podcast, that one podcast can still be spread across X amount of people, and it only needs to be created once.
Yeah.
So those are the two things of permissionless leverage. As a founder that's lacking skills, etc., you want to, well, as someone that wanting to start a business, lacking skills, the best business to start is one that is within permissionless leverage, right? So those are the two things I would aim for in terms of speaking about skills and where you want to go. In terms of lacking skills, in your original question, when looking at for example, me not knowing UX design or me building I know engineering and I know coding, but I didn't really do anything in PHP before.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be, or I have not handled user authentication, login, registering, forgot password, email marketing, all of that I had to learn and create from scratch. Um, but there's enough content out there online to be able to figure all that out. All you need is you need to just structure your way in terms of progressing that work. Break it down into chunks, decompose it, similar to the whole computational thinking of take a big problem and breaking down into bite-sized tasks. Do the same with anything you don't know, right? You want to get this software out. What do you need to do? Well, first you need to build it. How do you build it? You need X, Y, and Z. How do you achieve those X, Y, and Zs? I don't know how to achieve those X, Y, and Zs. Well, in which case, your next goal is not to build, is to learn about X, Y, and Z. And slowly, I
Sure.
think I've seen a really good Instagram post recently saying, I don't know exactly the order of it, but it went, um, if you don't have any ideas, read. If you have ideas, build. Um, if you started building, sell, or market
Yeah.
or grow,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that, something along those lines. But it's
So
like there's always a step. There's always the next step you can take.
if you were to put it into one or two sentences,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got a person similar to the age of us who's recently graduated and looking to start a company, and doesn't want to go
Mm-hmm.
down a typical corporate route, what would you say to them?
Start part time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the first sentence would be, start your business alongside a full time job or a part time job. You want to have a main income coming in. And the second one would be, um, every obstacle is just another chance to make progress. Yeah, that would be it
For
really.
sure.
Because then it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I really like your last one as well. I thought you were going to say every obstacle is like a chance to learn, but progress is the same thing. Um, and I see
Yeah,
it the
yeah,
same
exactly.
way. If, for example, if I've got to learn a new skill, I don't see it as an issue. I've got to learn a new skill. I'm like, great, I get to learn this new skill because I know it's going to
Mm-hmm.
help me. And I think a lot of people, when they're starting a business, they want everything to happen tomorrow. The biggest takeaway that I've learned over the past year and a half to nearly 2 years of doing this now is things take a lot longer than you expect them to, and I
Yeah,
think you've got prepared for that. Nothing's there's in the world of startups. But there's not often a get rich quick scheme. It will take hard work and graft. So, I I think mental health is something that we were basically touching on, and how you overcome those skills and obstacles. And I think that's something again which is really overlooked. Do you have any days where you're really like, oh, this is really difficult, or I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, or is this working? What? Tell me what those
definitely,
days are like.
definitely. I think as a founder, especially as a solo founder, those days come more frequently than you think. 4 out of the 5 days, you will feel like that. You will feel some sort of level of burnout, some level of stress, some level of kind of um, indecisiveness or questioning. Um, the whole thing to remember is you are not your thoughts. Um, and the second thing to remember is that while you might feel that way, emotions at the end of the day are hormones. Um, this is all our bodily functions from our primal brains from the back in the day when we had to hunt for food and everything, making us feel scared, indecisive, feeling like the world is going to end if we make X, Y, Z decision. And for that reason, you have to realize that logical thinking will not often answer those worries. If you feel burnt out, if you feel really stressed and you can't do any work, you could continue overthinking, but you're not going to get anywhere. At that point, logical reasoning is out the window because it's your primal brain saying fight or flight. What you need to do is literally one of them, fight it out, go to the gym, literally exercise, sweat it out, go to a sauna, or go on a flight, literally, go running, sprint it out. The whole idea is when your body releases those endorphins, gets natural dopamine, all of a sudden you start looking at things in a different perspective. Sure, there'll be times where it's good to, especially with someone that might be more mentally strong, and over time you end up learning. You can say, "No, I'm not my thoughts." Logically, I've made the right decision. I just need to, keep going, stay cool under pressure. But if the pressure ends up getting to you, which it likely will, especially if you're starting a business, make sure to take some sort of action. Whether that's going for a run, going gym, doing something, doing some sort of activity. Um,
Mm.
it helps a lot.
So, Econ Pilot, amazing, amazing, really cool business. When you first told me about it, I was like, that is sick. So, in your elevator pitch style, tell everyone exactly what Econ Pilot is.
Yep. So Ecompilot started off as a product research tool for online sellers, specifically dropshippers. Now we're an all-in-one platform, helping you helping take you from a complete beginner in selling online to eventually starting your first dropshipping store, finding the right products to sell that are unsaturated, that are profitable compared to all the other BS online. The way we do that is we end up tracking millions of products online for real demand
Mm-hmm.
metrics so that you skip all the guesswork and you see real data for real products.
Cool. And what I really like is this is a problem you had before starting
Yeah.
on. Like you said at the start, this is you create that Excel sheet that you could use to track the products. How's Econ Pilot going at the moment? Just so the audience knows, tell me if you've raised, and tell me, have you started hiring a team? Where are you up to?
hmm Yeah, so Econ Pilot has raised 200K last year. Well, towards the end of last year, and that's around the time I went full time on Econ Pilot. Currently, we're a team of 3 to 5 engineers. Well, engineers, people. Well, the reason I say 3 to 5 is because 2 are part time, and sometimes we hire temporarily for a certain project or a certain skill, whether it's UX design, etc. The main people within the team right now is me, Veronica, VA, Janelle, our senior software engineer, and Zoe. And the whole idea for Econ Pilot was that, for one, it was a problem I had. Later on, finding out a lot of people had the same problem simply by the fact that I ended up putting a Reddit post frustrated on the software's already out there and talking kind of about my research methodology. And it got a lot of response, a lot of upvotes. So I decided, right, let me use this validation and start creating a business out of it. Currently, Ecompilot has served around, I think we're now on 2,300 sellers total in terms of helping them find products, get them to, whether it take the first step, whether it's an experienced dropshipper wanting to find extra products to add to their stores. We're now introducing, in terms of what we're building currently and what we're focusing on, is we're now introducing a more personalized onboarding experience. We've had a lot of sellers that are completely new, and as building your software continuously is similar to when is similar to how when you create music. When you spend 400 hours listening to the same thing or reading the same lines of code and testing your product, you end up getting you end up learning the whole song from the start to the end. Same thing with software, so things seem simple to you. And you can over engineer it. So what's happened is we have a lot of new sellers come in, and while we think we've had enough of an onboarding experience to teach people how to use our tool, a lot of sellers are saying, I'd love to have some sort of guidelines, some sort of course to be able to take me from starting dropshipping, conducting proper research, and then being able to set up my first store. So we're introducing things like the user dashboard, um, statistics tracking. So now we'll be able to tell you how many products you've tracked per week, uh, and kind of give you milestones to reach. So instead of being dropped straight into a research tool, you now have a step-by-step plan and guide in order to be able to build the right habits of research, in order to be able to create the right product descriptions, add descriptions, and to be able to create your first store. In a way, we're now moving Ecompilot away from just being a research tool to Ecompilot is the fastest way to get started in dropshipping, because we'll take you from 0 to 1 in 30 days.
Nice, nice. It's really interesting because you're in a completely different sector to me. e-commerce, drop shipping, right? I'm in ed tech, but me and you are facing the exact same problem at the exact same moment. I'm facing the issue of onboarding at the moment, where I've got teachers who absolutely love us and know exactly what they're doing from the off. We've got um, a professor that we have to handhold through the process because it's a different onboarding process. But we get people signing up for the trial for Fabrio, but we don't get the onboarding process correct. So they don't understand the full value of what we can provide for them and what that is. And that's exactly what we're boiling down.
And then
One of
they
the
end
things
up not converting, right?
exactly, and we lose them. And it's not and like we can call them, we can email them, but not a lot of people have time for that, especially in edtech.
Mm-hmm.
Like teachers don't have time to answer the phone. So how do you convert them? How do you give that amazing onboard process so they know exactly what they're doing? One of the things that we've looked at, and I think you're probably going down the same way as you're looking at the milestones, saying, okay, you've tracked X many products, or you've done this, or you've drop shipped this, or whatever. We're looking at gamifying the user acquisition process. I'm not sure if it's something you could do, where you could say, right, you've looked at 5 products, here's 5 points, here's 10 points, or whatever, and creating that whole gamification, because a lot of companies do gamification on the learning side or like the actual usability side of it. But if you could gamify the whole acquisition process, then you can see your top 5 sellers in your location or your top 5 users in this location and share that with other users and gamify those and give people points for that. The reason I love and then those points convert to discounts, or those points can convert to like special trainings or badges. Like Google have sent me socks and like a pin badge for like answering reviews, or on Waze whenever I say report a police car, I get 9 points. I don't know what those 9 points mean, but I always get them, and it makes me feel good. So I think that's been really cool. That's something we're looking at, that whole gamification of the user acquisition right now, to help convert those people.
Yeah, so there's a specific book. I had it somewhere in this vicinity. It might be in the living room. It's the same one I recommended in the mastermind group, talking about game design thinking by
Okay.
Joe something Kim. And basically, she's worked on the games like The Sims, World of Warcraft, uh,
Yeah.
big titles within the space. And then she's helped advise startups. And the way games think is exactly how startups should think in terms of user acquisition, reaching product market fit 20 times faster. It's interesting. She gives this thought experiment saying, games are startups and softwares in their own perspective, or in their own way, but they provide kind of the most useless utility out of them all, and that's just to entertain and keep you occupied. So they have to have a really good retention process and a loop to be able to keep you in there. She compares, game techniques to something like Slack and how they've applied it within their company, whether it was, the notification noise, taking
Mm-hmm.
someone from the beginner level to mastery of using Slack, signing up and becoming a user, eventually creating your own channel, installing
Yeah.
plugins and add-ons and your own icons. And I agree about the gamification process. I think the one thing I took from that book with Ecompilot is, and I think this is the interesting thing about anyone looking to start a startup or a business of any kind, innovation doesn't always have to be technological, or even better, innovation doesn't always need to be within the core product ability. So let's say we continue innovating in Ecompilot. Now we
Yeah.
automatically suggest you product differentiators with natural language
Cool.
processing, right? But in the biggest innovation we're going to make is this whole milestone thing, right? The whole idea of being able to take a user and handhold them through the process, regardless of what the stage they're at. And you could, and at the beginning, as a technical founder, I used to look at that and go, well, that's not really intellectual property worthy. I would much rather just continue building the best research tool in the world. But best research tool doesn't necessarily just mean best data and the real data. It's also from a usability aspect. How a user is able to become a master at it through the gamification process. We took inspiration from Duolingo, right, and Canva. I like how Canva ends up giving you confetti and telling you great job on your first design, right? With Ecompilot, while we thought about the whole leaderboard system, similarly to Duolingo, I see my mom spend hours on it, simply by the fact that there was someone else competing with her in a different country, and I just thought, wow, this gamification process really helped that retention. In the case of Ecompilot, we're mainly looking at the fact that we want we want users to be able to see that they're making progress, because the gap between when they start selling and they get their first sale and the time they sign up for Ecompilot is still quite large. Not only do we want to upskill them to be able to sell a product, but the value they get from Ecompilot ultimately happens when they get their first sale. How can we
Yeah.
make them feel good? How can we give them that satisfaction of I'm making progress, I'm making the right decision making? And rather
Yeah.
than making a long 5-minute video telling them what to do, or a YouTube guide, having some sort of thing that literally goes up when you research a product, when you track a product, when you generate a product description, and seeing the progress bar move left to right. For one, it helps us embed the right research skills within you, because now you're looking at quantitative data. You're looking at real demand metrics. You're looking at qualitative data, how to differentiate a product, and you're looking at product utility. All these things we're building into the product. Basically, with those milestones, we're able to teach you how to research the right way, and two, we're able to give you that satisfaction of making progress. Because ultimately, when people look to create a side hustle or start anything, the biggest the biggest thing that ends up causing failure is not necessarily burnout, but giving up. Not seeing that lack of progress compared to university or schools and educational system. You always get graded. You have instant feedback. That feedback's gone when you start your own business. What
Mm-hmm.
Ecompile's looking to do is give you that feedback back into your own hands, being able to say you're doing great, continue with this, you're missing this, that, and this. And with that, you're able to then not only increase retention, but you're able to increase usability. People know your software better, they have the right research skills, and in general, it's a much more friendlier experience. It almost feels like someone sat beside you telling you what to do.
For sure. For sure. And I want to loop this back in because what you just said, me and what I've just suggested as well is like we would have never learnt that at school, or university, or you'd probably never learnt that at And this wraps it up really nicely because it just shows that us two founders, one aerospace degree, computer science, 4 years experience, we're talking about gamification of an onboarding process for a SaaS product,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it just shows that anyone can learn those skills, whether you're technical or non-technical. And it goes back to what you said about the innovation doesn't always have to be technical, because it takes that thinking and be like, okay, I've got this problem. Our problem right now is that free trial conversion. How
Yeah.
do you solve that problem? You read, you look at what the people done, you speak to people. You just telling me that you're looking at the same thing as me is like I'm on the right track. I'm not completely lost, and so you will find that you're not completely lost half the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That you'll find that what you say is, if I've got a problem and I'll go ask for someone for advice, I was like, yeah, what do you thought of that? I've done this because of this, or like you be confident in yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think one last thing to add as well, in terms of, because I thought a really good example of innovation that's not technical.
Yep.
Look at Gymshark. They had the problem of
Yes.
we don't have the advertising spend of Nike. Sure, our clothes might not be the quality of Nike yet, but how do we innovate in this space? And that was influencer marketing at the time. They ended up
Hmm.
innovating through that, and that ended up making their business a breakout success.
Yeah. Ben Francis, I'm very proud. He's from Birmingham, from like Solihull. He went to Aston University. He delivered pizzas whilst he's doing Gymshark. Absolutely love the story as well. So yeah, I've really enjoyed having you on. I think this has been an open, nice conversation about what it's like to start a startup as like a young founder
Hmm.
um coming out of graduation for degree apprenticeship or a degree. If you were to leave someone who's looking to start a business and looking to go from idea to raise to hiring, what is some of the key advice you would give to them?
Yeah, the key advice one is work on your business, as a side project at the beginning. Test your idea, get some initial traction before fully delving into it.
Okay.
Secondly, feel free to ask for advice. You'd be surprised how much free advice there is out there. People are looking to help and give back. They got advice originally, they're always looking to help. Um, and three is just, persevere, continue. I like to give this is the one thing I tell my friends when they say, everything's based on luck. And that's, if it is really based on luck and it's all chance, you know, if we look at statistics and like flipping a coin, right? Flipping a coin and getting heads or tails is 50-50 at the beginning. But do it 10 times, you end up seeing that in order to just get heads once and you flip the coin 10 times, you're 99.96% likely to get heads at least one of those times. And, that's a perfect example of just literally continue trying it things again and again, persevere. We don't end up living in a vacuum. So it's never just 50-50, or let's say, you getting a successful business is 1%. It never just stays 1%, because you can gain skills, you can learn things. And each time you try, that percentage goes up. So just continue trying.
Awesome. Um, Thank you so much. think it's been. I
Yeah,
think
thanks
it's
for
been.
having me. It's been a great conversation.
It definitely has. And if anyone does want to reach out to us, I know Jacob or myself, and speak to us about either Econ Pilot or what it's like to start a startup, I'll just reach out. My email is going to be in the description, or you can find us both on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
Cool, awesome, cool.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks, Jacob.